Jesus is Lord. It's as simple as that. You guys can have to see. Jesus is Lord. That's all it took. Get admission to the earliest followers of Jesus. That would be the Ebion, known as the Way, and those folks who later were called Christians up around Antioch. Jesus is Lord. That was the creed. Well, let's see. About 20 years later, Paul was writing this letter because what happens with ideas? Ideas start sprouting growths off of them and opinions. And Paul writes this letter to Corinth in the mid-50s because he begins it saying, I've heard from Chloe's people, there are divisions among you. Some of you say I follow Paul. Some of you say I follow Apollos. Some of you say I follow Cephas. Some of you say I follow Christ. Is Christ divided? Ideas. They can divide us. And just step out in history a little bit more. Now remember, we started with Jesus is Lord. And we get to good old Theodosius, the emperor, and St. Athanasius. And they write a little thing that starts like this. Whosoever will be saved before all things, it is necessary that he hold the Catholic faith. And about Jesus as Lord, I'll skip over a lot of it. Furthermore, it is necessary to everlasting salvation that he also believe rightly the incarnation of our Lord Jesus Christ. For the right faith is that we believe and confess that our Lord Jesus Christ, the Son of God, is God and man, God of the substance of the Father, begotten before the worlds, and man of the substance of his mother, born in the world. Perfect God and perfect man, of a reasonable soul and human flesh, subsisting, equal to the Father as touching his Godhead, and inferior to the Father as touching his manhood. And I'll stop there. So there you see it. We just couldn't leave it alone. Jesus is Lord. Because when I say Jesus is Lord, that probably means something very specific and individual to me. When you say Jesus is Lord, or you say it, or even you, or you, yes you, or even you, when you say Jesus is Lord, it's going to have a unique flavor to it. And can we tolerate difference? Or will it divide us? I was intrigued. I'm reading this book that John Richards gave me. It's by Richard Holloway, titled Leaving Alexandria, a Memoir of Faith and Doubt. And in this book, he talks about Father Kelly. And Father Kelly was a man who felt that he had a life of failures. He was going to go to military school, but he started going deaf, so he couldn't go through military school. So he goes to Oxford, gets the 4th level. That's the lowest level you can graduate with from Oxford, which Holloway points out was usually given to those who were too brilliant to fall within any given system. They always challenged the system. Now this guy was around in the late 1800s and established this missionary society in the early 1900s. And I would assume, in my own bias, that he's going to be one of these doctrinal Anglicans. You know, it's right there in the book. This is the way you do it. Except he says this. This is said to be correct, and that incorrect. But I do not care about these words. I would rather ask, why is this doctrine vital and that fatal to a man's soul and capacity to live? Why is this doctrine vital and that fatal to a man's soul and capacity to live? Someone said it was, and he ought to know. Very well, we must go to him and find out why he found it so. Then each man must look into his own soul find in his own life its questions and difficulties, its perplexities and diversities. Wow! Yeah, I can live with that. So what happens if we go to those who know what is right, the right doctrine, and what doctrine is fatal? What happens? Well, Pico della Mirandola. Did I say that right, Miriam? I didn't. Huh?
Mirandola.
Mirandola. Thank you. I got the Pico della right. All right. He was a gentleman at the dawn of enlightenment who presented his oration on the dignity of man. I'm sorry for all the sexist language, but I'm reading things that are a little bit back there before we got enlightened. So he's reading this to the Pope and the Pope's assembled cardinals in Rome. The oration on the dignity of man. And the Pope and the cardinals considered that. And for the rest of Pico's life, he was scurrying around Europe trying to avoid the cleansing fire of the church. The cleansing fire that got people like Giordano Bruno. Got that one right? Okay. Savonarola, the other one. And a few people in England, a few people, you know. So that's the answer. If you don't have my line, we'll just build a little fire out here. So I'm going to tell you what Jesus is Lord means, and well, no, that's not what Paul was getting at. Paul was saying each of us come to faith and to knowing in a unique way. It is time to throw down the false idol of certainty and open our hearts to the mysterious depth of knowing. How do you know Jesus is Lord? And if you share that with me, that might challenge me. See, it all comes back to security and insecurity. Am I secure in my faith, or am I secure in my belief? And I think belief is a field that's paved over. Faith is a field that's made fertile by doubt. It's growing. There's an evolutionary intelligence that calls me to learn more and more and more. So the Jesus is Lord I knew when I was this old is different from the Jesus is Lord I knew when I was this old. And the Jesus is Lord is different from this old. I'm pointing to Max, who's a young guy. And the Jesus is Lord that I know now is different from all of them. But they are a part of that evolutionary process. The challenge. How do we do that without becoming divided? Paul left you hanging this morning. Did you notice that? He ends up with, are all apostles, are all prophets, are all teachers, do all work miracles, do all possess gifts of healing, do all speak in tongues, do all interpret, but strive for the greater gift. What does that mean? Why stop there? Well, next week he begins with, if I speak with the tongues of angels, but have not love, I'm a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. It is the love of God, that ties our hearts together in faith, in knowing. So I can share with you what Jesus is Lord means to me. And I hope, it is my deepest hope, that you are secure enough in your faith that you can share with me too. And we'll meet in respect that is founded upon God's love.